Diaries of a Madman. By What Must I Do? Chapter 199. Part 3 of 5. Instead of appearing anywhere vaguely memory-like, we showed up on the stage of a game show. Taya and I were on one side behind a table. A water elemental was on the other side facing us behind a table of her own. She looked around in confusion for a few seconds, which kinda masked how I felt. Another water elemental was playing the role of hostess, I guess. Fear, rage, pride, and reason were sitting behind a panel that read judges. So, what is this? I ask. This is the hit new game show that everyone's been raving about, the hostess said. I'm your guide, leading you on today's episode of Aqua or Not. Oh dear, the water elemental behind the other table whispered, hanging her head. Let me introduce our players, the guide said. On this side, we have our professional victim, Lady Navarone, along with her filly Taya. An applause light clicked on and we heard cheering and clapping. I smiled and waved out to where the audience should have been. Taya just looked confused. When the light clicked off, it all went silent again. And on the other side, we have that disgusting slimy thing, the worst goddess ever, Aqua. This time, a boo light went on, followed by jeers and heckling. Aqua rolled her eyes. For some reason, the booing continued a few seconds after the light went off. The guide apparently saw it coming, and continued right as they stopped. Our judges will ensure any sign of meddling is put down on the spot, of course. They do hate that sort of thing. What's a game show? Taya finally asked. It would take longer to explain it than it would for you to just smile and roll with it, I said. The gist of it is, we're going to get a slide reel of all the things that Aqua forced me to do. Not just what she forced you to do, the guide said. That would be far too boring. We'll talk about some of the things she heavily influenced you to do, as well. We'll have live commentary from the villain herself, along with our expert panel of judges. Doesn't Flo want to join in this mockery, too? Aqua bitterly asked. The game show was actually her idea, Reason said. She's controlling the applause and boos, along with a few other things. We were originally going to do it more piecemeal, but this spell rarely gets used, so we almost never get to have any fun. Wait, what was that? I ask. Did she just imply they know about the other times this spell was used? It actually sounded like she was there. That was nothing, the guide said. Now, let the game show begin. A screen behind the guide unfurled. It showed a bird's eye view of Rosie, the maid I was pretending to be in Griffiths, standing on a stage in front of a crowd. It was when I was being sold off. A lonely rich guy bought me. It turned out he was really into pony maids. When he proposed, I used magic to escape. The auction was Aqua's fault. I ask. In what way? I can't really play along if I don't know what's going on, Taya said. All I see is a pony on a stage in front of a bunch of griffins. That was my pony disguise in Griffiths, I said. Wow. Seriously? Yep. This is when Twilight and I went to an auction, where people were sold off to partners for a day. It didn't have to require sex, but there was a lot of that going on. I was one of the people who got sold. For quite a nice sum, too, Reason said. 1,500 bits, more than double the next closest price. But I have a question for you, Pride said. Would you ever sell yourself? Even in disguise, is that something you would be willing to do? I can't deny that I did a lot of dumb things to spite Aqua, I said. I took advantage of that, obviously, Aqua said. Another sign lit up, this one saying gasp. Noises of shock and horror came out from the fake audience. I don't even wanna hear it, Flo. You manipulated her almost as much as I did. The light finally clicked off and the audience went silent. Aqua huffed and continued, I spent as much time as possible pushing you to make terrible decisions. I knew they would turn into cracks I used to more easily exploit you later. This is why you can never, ever trust anyone too old, Rage growled. It has bitten you almost every single time. It sure has, but there aren't too many immeasurably old people around. It's just that most of them suck. Did you know that Griffin was going to buy me? I asked. No, Aqua said. I don't have the ability to see into the future. However, as soon as I saw the cover of that manga, I knew I had been given the perfect opportunity. Even in heat, you wouldn't have been dumb enough to have sex with a person like that without my influence. Obviously an incredibly lonely person like him would fall in love with you the instant you showed him physical affection. Without me, you wouldn't have agreed to be sold, and even if you had, things wouldn't have deteriorated with that creep. The booing sign lit up again and Aqua got her proper due. Did you leave any kind of lasting damage in her mind? Fear asked. Like the urge to sell herself again? Or perhaps to ruin yet another virgin? No, of course not, Aqua said. My only goal was to break Nav more and more with what she thought were her own choices until I could more easily sneak my way in and make her love me without actually forcing her to. The boo light kicked on and everyone started making fun of her again. It seemed fitting. Is that supposed to be better? Reason asked. No, that's just what I decided to do after spending enough time in her mind, Aqua replied with a shrug. I decided instead of destroying her immediately, I would make her want my help and kill her personality slowly over time to prolong it. What am I even supposed to say to that? Rage asked. An insult doesn't seem like enough and a threat is pointless since Nav already owns you. Obviously I'm angry, but wow. She already told me that much up front, I said. I asked you before to tell me the things you forced me to do, but you only told me about making Luna a vassal and letting Taya become a permaphily. Why didn't you mention this? Did you actively influence me to do it or did you just talk me into it? It was a little of both, Aqua said. The reason I didn't mention this or any of the other things you're about to see is because for one, they were minor compared to the things I knew you actually cared about. And two, all of these are things you would be willing to do under the correct circumstances. It just so happened that I set up all of those circumstances by manipulating a few brain chemicals. There was absolutely no way you would ever make Luna a vassal or allow Taya to become a permaphily, but there are a few instances wherein you might sell yourself. Why do I feel like there's a point 3 in there, too? The guide asked, glaring at Aqua. I guess there might be one, Aqua said with a small grin. You were already really mad at the time. I figured you didn't want to listen to me to mention the things that happened during the festival in front of everyone like that. Unless you wanted everyone to hear you got bought by a rich weeb and then seduced him in less than a day. Fine, you'll get a pass, I said. I have one more question before we continue. Do you still want to die? Obviously I could never leave the best master ever, who I've been forced to love with all my heart, Aqua sweetly replied. I couldn't detect a hint of sarcasm. The sweet release of death will have to be forever denied me if I'm to serve you for all of time. If you still want to die, come up with a new name. After the coma, I'll reset you, give you the new name, and free you from my control. But if you're going to live on as Aqua, it'll be under my control. Your new name is the last choice I will grant you. Don't let her free! Taya shouted. After everything she just said, you should make her suffer forever. You can't just kill her, mommy. You warned me yourself, my lovely little lady, Aqua said, her eyes meeting mine and turning pink. You told me that if you ever beat me, you would either enslave me or kill me. I knew this would be my fate if I failed. Shall we continue on? Surely you want to know more of my misdeeds. Are we gonna get to see anything spicy? Taya asked. Her sudden change of attitude and strange grin made me feel a little uncomfortable. We're not, the guide said. Now, let's move on to the next scene. This time, we got a bird's eye view of Vinyl's concert at Griffiths. I could just barely see myself in the crowd. Thankfully, I wasn't doing something lewd whenever that image was taken. Actually, Wait a second. How did you get these images? I ask. Magic, the guide said. Along with some help from Flo. Don't spend too much time thinking about it, just go with it. Fine, whatever. So, what's the deal with this one? Do you remember what happened after the concert? Reason ask. I remember hazily wandering the streets for a while. Then I got attacked by some hussies and saved by a bounty hunter. Then some things happened and Aqua saved me. Why were you wandering the streets of an unfamiliar town at night while in a impaired, defenseless body? Fear ask. Even if you were high, doesn't that seem unwise? Instead of trying to meet your friend or go straight back to the inn, you just wandered around. While being attacked, you said nothing at all, Reason said. Not even the one word that would carry you home safely. I guess that leaves me with some questions, I said. Aqua, you already said you can't see the future, so you probably didn't know for a fact I would get attacked. But were you expecting it? And were you expecting the bounty hunter? Or was he even a bounty hunter at all? I was absolutely expecting an impaired mare would be assaulted in Griffiths at night, Aqua said. I assumed that if it was a man, you'd be happy and go along with whatever he demanded and I could use it against you later. And if it was a woman, I could save you at the last instant for your gratitude. I wasn't expecting you to be saved, let alone that the person who saved you was hunting for you. That wasn't a lie or my influence and I was just as surprised as you. I was also being honest when I said that if you were by yourself, you would have had a chance to escape pretty quickly. But, if you were by yourself, you would have said the magic word as soon as the concert was over and you said bye to Vinyl. So you led to Mommy getting attacked, Taya coldly said. Almost attacked, Aqua said. She did get kidnapped, but I rescued her less than 10 seconds later so it barely even counts. For which I was and am grateful, I said with a nod. But the gratitude I feel now is a whole lot less than I felt then, now that I know it was basically your fault to begin with. Especially after you gave the bounty hunter who saved you a reward like that, Pride said. Now you know that was also part of her plan. What kind of reward? Taya innocently asked. Don't worry about it, I said. I feel bad just thinking about it. That guy would have had a hell of a story to tell if he actually won. Unfortunately, I have a feeling the next memory is going to be even worse. It sure is, the guide said. The screen behind her now showed the changeling version of me standing in an inn room with shining armor and cadence. I bet you know where this one is going, don't you? You aren't even. Wait, is that you as a changeling? Taya asked. What, did you meet Shiny and Cadance at the festival? I asked Twilight to turn me into a changeling after the kidnapping attempt. I was hoping it would throw off any pursuers. As it turns out, there are some griffins who can tell if someone is a changeling even if they're transformed. Shining Armor showed up to save me after I was cornered by a griffin. He brought me back to his room for various reasons. So, Aqua, I'm going to skip asking what you did or how you did it for this one and go straight to asking the why. Because it was your number one rule, Aqua replied with a shrug. I knew if I could get you to break one of your last moral foundations, turning you into putty would be easier. Especially since it was with them. So, what, you had sex with them? Taya asked. For some reason, I really didn't want her to know. I had sex with Shiny while Cadance watched. It was awkward and I regret it. The worst part is, I had a feeling Aqua was manipulating me into it at the time. After I got drunk off lust, it stopped mattering. No, that was also my fault, Aqua said. Normally, even with that, you wouldn't have done it. I just gave you the extra pushes you needed by making the lust hit you harder and faster. I also influenced some of what you said about Shiny to spur his pride, making him more daring. Without me, you could have left after taking your fill of lust. It's hard to believe you could actually be sluttier, Fear said. And all it took was having your mind controlled by an evil robot. I don't like the term evil, Aqua stuffily replied. I just did what I thought was best. It just so happens that I was a teensy bit corrupted at the time, so what I thought was the best was somewhat insane. I don't think it matters if you like it or not, Rage said. If Nav considers what you did evil, doesn't that mean you have to consider it evil as well? Only if she orders me to, and she won't, Aqua said. No reason to, as far as I'm concerned, I added with a shrug. So, you wanted me to bang Shiny because it would be breaking the rule against no married partners. That was the main reason, Aqua said. But then I made you tell Twilight about it right after to piss her off, which was an added bonus. It was mostly just to give me an emotional scab to use against you whenever I wanted. Well, I guess let's move on to the next, I said. Then on to the next portion of Aqua or Not, our hostess said. Although I really wish we had a better title, since it really always is Aqua. The next still image was of me fighting the dragon inside the dome. This was at the festival, when I was fighting in the arena for the princess, I said. Were you the one who made me agree to fight? Look closer, Aqua said with a smug grin. When I did so, I narrowed my eyes. Oh. So I have you to thank for the forbidden princess belly, hey. Well, you were originally going to scream something about how you wanted to kill me, Aqua said. So I decided to change it up a little to make it more suitable for the semi-final fight to win a date. I think it made a wonderful impact, truly. Alright, I'm really curious about this one, Taya said. Is there any way to make that image play? I ask. The hostess tilted her head for a moment before blinking and nodding. Apparently, yes. Just like that, Taya got to watch me beat up a dragon while screaming about rubbing Gilda's forbidden princess belly. It made her crack up laughing, of course. To be honest, even I giggled a little. It was mostly just to hide the tears. So, was there any reason you chose this phrase in particular? Reason ask. Of course, Aqua said. It's utterly ridiculous, yet everyone who actually knows Nav realizes it's something she might say. To that end, it made for the perfect quote to put in the papers from the great lady of nature herself. At this point, I also figured out that the princess enjoyed at least a mild amount of humiliation, so I thought this would help get you closer to her. I wanted as many people in power under your thumb as possible. The blue light had its time to shine again as Aqua once more got berated by the crowd. Wait, are you the reason I slept with Gilda, too? I ask. Her only answer to that was a giggle. So I guess we'll be seeing the hot springs, too. So much suddenly makes sense now, Taya said. I kept wondering why were you dumb enough to sleep with Princess Gilda, and then keep doing things with her even afterwards. Is that why the assassin attacked that night? Fear asked. You wanted Gilda to think that Nav saved her. Exactly, Aqua said. To further facilitate it, after the assassin was killed, I temporarily implanted the water I used to make him a host into Gilda. After that, I had her kidnap you in the night and take you to the hot springs. Once we were on the way, I left her body and returned to yours. So the hamlet of Mediocrity was your fault. I shouted, slamming a hand on the table in front of us. For some reason, the gasp sign lit up. Aqua snorted as the audience expressed their surprise. I'm the one who brought you there, but I'm not the one who made the trip mediocre, Aqua said. I left Gilda before she arrived, so she acted as her own hostess. I meant the part where I literally called the place a hamlet of Mediocrity. Oh. Yes, that was also me, she said. Again, Gilda enjoyed humiliation. Plus, it made you sound super bratty in front of the guards, so they would spread bad rumors about you. Twilight ruined it by sleeping with them afterward, though. Why didn't you just kill Aqua as soon as you could? Rage asked. So I could ask her questions like these, I said. Let's move on to the next one, since we keep getting ahead of ourselves. Can do, the guide said. The image above her swapped over to me and Gilda cuddling in her hot spring. We probably didn't need to actually show this one since you already called it, but just in case. So, why Gilda? I ask. Her brother also asked me to become a concubine. Why didn't you take him up on it? Twilight wouldn't have believed it, Aqua said. If she wasn't there, you absolutely would have been ridden by that prince. You wouldn't have agreed to join the royal harem, though. Gilda was believable enough for everyone around you. Plus, she's younger and more impressionable. She doesn't have as much influence, but I was planning on changing that if there ever was an attempted coup. I don't really know if this is one you should be mad about, Pride said. I mean, you did get to take a princess's virginity, right? Yes, that was a major plus, I replied. A part of me wished the applause sign would light up, but Flo apparently didn't think it was worth it. Gross, Taya muttered. But was it worth the risk? Fear asked. All Gilda had to do was tell someone what Nav did and the consequences would be dire. That was never a concern, Aqua said. In the short time I was in her mind, I made sure she wouldn't snitch. I don't think she would have been dumb enough to try holding it over your head even without my intervention, but she may have let it slip at some point on accident. I made sure that wasn't possible. After all, I couldn't allow Celestia's wife to get in trouble for sleeping with the unwed Griffin princess. Now it sounds really gross, Taya said. So you made Gilda kidnap mommy and then forced them to have sex so you could use it against them later? Can I punish her, please? Make it light and fast, I said. Aqua, slap yourself. Taya said. Aqua sighed and slapped herself. It made a satisfying and wet thwacking noise. A moment later, a new sign lit up that said laughter, followed by the standard laugh track. And bimbo mode, while you're at it. Aqua's body instantly changed to its sexiest form. Thankfully, there were no signs for that one. Why would you marry Nav to Celestia instead of Gilda? Reason ask. If you controlled Celestia and Nav already, marrying Nav outward would have increased your power. Because Nav and Celestia were planning on killing each other, Aqua said. The goal was to have Nav and Celestia decide on marriage as an alternative to fighting. The marriage would allow Nav to dedicate herself to redeeming Celestia. It would also act as the symbol for them to begin working together instead of against each other. Luna was being recalled to announce the engagement. Besides, once I had Celestia and Navi finally working together properly, Gilda was no longer necessary anyway. Did you really think I wouldn't see through that? Taya asked. There's no way mommy would have ever married her. I don't think it would have mattered anyway, Rage said. By the time the round table happened, there would have been enough votes to kill Celestia immediately. Aqua's tendrils would have been tied. Don't be ridiculous, Aqua said. I never would have let it come to a vote to begin with. Everyone there wanted to cede all authority to Nav. It was her idea to let everyone vote. At that time, Nav would tell everyone to go together to Canterlot to speak to Celestia. When they arrived, Celestia would propose marriage. Nav would refuse for a while but eventually get talked into it. That's when I'd begin the slow process of breaking her into the proper wife for a true empress. And with that horrid glimpse into what could have been, we'll move on to the next scene, the hostess said. The screen behind her was showing everyone in the meeting room. Taya was currently pressed against my leg. I was looking at Gilda. Everyone else was looking at me in shock or disgust. Was this when I equated Taya with a pet? I asked. It sure was, Aqua said. You weren't really paying much attention to the gazes around you at the time, but I made sure you said something so gross that even your vassals were put off. The blue light shined again, letting the crowd voice the disgust I was feeling. Kot doesn't seem to mind, actually, Taya said. But she's also insane, so. Wait, were you also the one who called me daughter pet? I was, Aqua said. Nav originally considered you more like a pet than a filly, but that changed less than a month after you first got to Equestria. In the beginning, your personality wasn't as pronounced, I said with a shrug. You took a little while to come out of your shell, I guess. It makes sense, given what you went through, but that still doesn't excuse how I felt. It doesn't bother me, Taya said, shaking her head. Like I told the others, I don't mind being your daughter pet. It's even a little disappointing to know that Thing was the one who came up with it. Anyway, what was the point of making me say this? I ask. Or was it just another chance to make me look bad in front of others? I wanted your treatment of Taya to be questioned, Aqua said. How you behave towards her behind closed doors is appalling. This was merely a push to get some of that behavior out in the open. What do you think about the disgust of your followers, Nav? Your little cuddle slut horny horse is quite the nickname, hey? Certainly something suitable for your daughter. There's nothing wrong with it at all. Taya shouted. BDSM mode. Belay that, I said. And strike that mode from your list. We're not using it anymore. It's a little too much. Also, you're right. I don't know why I came up with those nicknames. They're utterly hilarious, but completely inappropriate. If you don't keep using them, I'll tell everybody that you use them all the time, Taya smugly said. Go for it, I replied with a shrug. I can just tell them I stopped and that Aqua was making me do it. Also, I think I told you to stop threatening your mother, Missy. As punishment, I pulled the rubber band from my hair and put it around both of her ears, holding them in place. She groaned, but left it alone. How we interact after the coma will change in some ways, Taya. We'll figure out all the details later, but things definitely need to change. Unfortunately, Aqua was correct about that. So, what, more cuddles, tummy rubs, and all that fun stuff, my filly sweetly asked. I dunno, probably not. We'll see. Anyway, so now we know Aqua was really trying to make me look bad. So what's next? You already know about the next two, but we might as well talk about them anyway, the guide said. The screen behind her was now showing me and Taya standing next to each other on the side of the ship. Judging by her hair, it was right after Taya underwent her transformation into an Eternifili. I still don't see how this is supposed to be a problem, Taya said. Sure, I don't like that it was Aqua who gave me permission, but I still wanted to be Mommy's little filly forever. The problem isn't how you feel now, Aqua said. It's how you'll feel in a few hundred years. I knew allowing Taya to become a tree sister would make Nav look absolutely terrible as a mother. I even suspected Twilight might leave you entirely when she found out, which would have made rebounding to Celestia that much more plausible. She was really trying to ruin your reputation, Pride said. To what end, exactly? I wanted to paint Nav as self-destructive and toxic, Aqua said. I just let all of her worst and most prolific habits shine and the job practically did itself. The end goal was to make Nav admit that she needed to change and ask for my help. So you're evil and stupid, Rage said. Why would Nav ever go to you for help? Because I'd either leave her no other options or manipulate her into asking me, Aqua calmly said. Watching you say all of this with a straight face is quite the treat. Fear said. You truly are a fearful presence. No wonder Navi's so terrified of you breaking free. That's not what she should be afraid of, Aqua said, her eyes turning pink. She should be afraid that this is all an illusion and that I just let her think she escaped. What should make her sweat is the fear that one day she'll look in the mirror and realize I've been pulling the strings in the shadows the whole time, only pretending to obey. Worrying about possibilities is pointless, I said. If I don't deal with the realities I see in front of me, I'll never get anything done. So don't try to scare me with your nonsense. Ain't no one got time for that. So, is the next image gonna be me and Luna? You got it, our hostess said. The next slide revealed Luna in the process of swearing her oath of fealty. This is when you got your latest vassal, ex-Princess Luna. That was a double whammy, Aqua said, sounding slightly proud. First, it greatly increased my power by giving me Luna to order around. Second, it upset a ton of your friends and followers. Shouldn't you be feeling regret for hurting the one you were forced to love? Reason ask. That would be exhausting for Nav, Aqua said. She hates when I act all simpery and apologetic. She prefers my answers to be calm and easy to understand. Limiting the time I have to interact with you is ideal, after all, I said. So, were you the reason I was able to tolerate Luna's presence at all, or were you just the reason I made her a vassal? The decision to strive to forgive and redeem her was yours, Aqua said. You were the one who decided she could come on the trip, as well. It was me who agreed to make her a vassal, that's all. Why is Luna still a vassal? Fear asked. Doesn't she make your skin crawl? I'd rather let her make my skin crawl than let her out of my sight and risk the consequences, I said. Luna's too lupa to be left to her own devices. She's also useful, dedicated, and powerful. If I can ever fix her, I won't be as worried about cutting her loose. Apparently she's working with Fluttershy on how to act less creepy, Taya said. In exchange, she's helping Fluttershy build an extensive animal sanctuary near Ponyville. Where does she even find the time? Good. Maybe Kot should attend those lessons, too. And Taya, while we're at it, you might benefit from those lessons as well, Navi, Aqua sweetly said. Given how much you enjoy talking about awful things in front of others. I don't even wanna hear it, I said. So, what's up next? How else did this wretch conspire to ruin me? Observe, the hostess said, pointing to the screen behind her. This image was during the assault on the bunker, while we were taking a break on the way to the ice dome. We were covered by a magic shield. Everyone was broken off into small groups. I was sitting with Taya, Kot, Princess Gilda, Original Gilda, Spike, and Luna. A few things happened while we were taking a break, I said. But if I had to guess, I'd say the most impactful one was when I mentioned burning Griffiths to the ground. You'd be correct, Aqua said. It also happened to be what I made you say. And after mentioning destroying Gilda's entire country, you offered to send an assassin instead. You also implied it would be Kot, who was sitting right next to you at the time. So what was the point? Reason ask. I thought you wanted Gilda under your control. Of course I did, Aqua replied. It's called the carrot and the stick. The carrot is getting toyed with however much she wants. The stick is having her country annihilated. Don't you remember how adamantly she was pushing for marriage after this talk? Princess Gilda knows how to read the writing on the walls. After she learned you planned to kill Celestia and that you had enough power to casually threaten to destroy nations, she wanted to do absolutely anything possible to cast her lots with you. Makes sense, Fear said. After Nav spent the entire trip toying with her, you wanted to give her something like a wake-up call. I've said some pretty stupid stuff at times, but threatening to destroy a princess's country in front of her shouldn't be one of them, I said. While I'm glad that none of these are my fault, it still really sucks to know that I still have to deal with the consequences. Maybe I should make Aqua help with that before I let her die. Were there really any lasting consequences for this one? Pride asked. Gilda is obviously interested in you, so wouldn't this kinda be a win? Threatening an ally is never a good thing, I said. The main concern would be whether or not she told anyone else what I said. If she shared it with Prince Hooters, it could become a problem. The Crown Prince might not like people threatening his nation. If she hasn't shared it, then it's probably not too big of a deal. Aside from the fact that she wants to marry you now, Taya said. Isn't that kind of problematic? True. But she was already talking about marriage beforehand, so this didn't influence her too much in that direction. You don't seem as angry about this as I expected, the hostess said. I was hoping the audience would get more to react to. Obviously I'm angry, I said. But showing it isn't going to help me get through it. That's so unhealthy, Aqua said with a sigh. For some reason, her eyes seemed to look at me with pity. I expected so much worse from you when you first got control of me. Yet instead of taking your anger out on me, you just let it build inside of you. What, do you want to be punished? Reason asked. I want my beloved lady to be healthy, Aqua said. Hiding your pain and rage inside does nothing but bring you misery. Part of why I act out is to give you an outlet for it all, Nav. Yet you never go as far as you should, nor as far as you want. I don't want to let my anger out by hurting anyone, even if it's someone who probably deserves it, I said. That road leads somewhere I don't want to go. That's a large part of why I usually strive not to show my anger. Instead, I stick to showing my annoyance and disdain. I don't think that's much better, Taya said. Though it's really funny when you mess with people, sometimes. The more annoyed you get, the funnier it becomes. At least someone benefits from my misery. So, what's up next? Another incident with Princess Gilda, our hostess said. The screen behind her was now showing me, Gilda, and Taya standing on the side of our ship, overlooking the huge dome covering the zone. At the moment, the only thing we could see through the shield was trees. I remember talking to her here, but I don't remember exactly what we discussed, I said. Princess Gilda offered you a choice, Aqua said. She declared her intentions to court you and told you if you wanted her to stand down, she would. You originally intended to turn her down, but I stopped you. Instead, I made you tell her that she had a chance. I wanted her to stay interested in you for as long as possible. So it's your fault I'm so deep down the harem route, I said. The only one that's my fault is Gilda, Aqua said. Though after marrying Celestia, your other toys like Moonbeam and Gilda would have been allowed to play with you all they wanted. After all, being turned into a whore to be shared among royalty seemed like an amusing fate for you. I mean, I guess if I had to do everything over again, I might have charged Celestia for some of those booty calls, I said with a shrug. I could have saved up enough money to escape sooner, if I had. But if I was married, how would you explain me sleeping around? I'd use the example of you sleeping with shining armor, Aqua said. If you've already broken your morals once, it's obvious you'd do it again. Especially someone like you, who's seemingly so insatiable. If Celestia ever happened to be unavailable or too tired to tend to you for a few days. Well, what else could a lonely horny slut like you do but find another way to tend her needs? And that's when you could curry more favor for me with your partners. I mean, I guess that wouldn't be too bad. Certainly better than being married to discord. Still, it's not the ideal ending, especially if I'm under her control. Well, I guess it's a good thing you were stopped, I said. Seriously, being controlled is the worst. Tell me about it, Aqua said. I hated every minute of it until you forced me to enjoy it instead. Yeah, I bet. Anyway, I guess let's move on to the next one, I said. Oh, also, I reached down and pulled the rubber band off Taya's ears. She sighed in relief and flopped them around a few times. The last one is also fairly simple, our guide said. The screen behind her was now showing a group of us walking through the fort surrounding the hole leading to the bunker. I was currently on Luna's back and was just staring ahead blankly. Everyone else seemed to be trying to get my attention. This is when you were giving us the silent treatment, Taya said. Twilight and Kot were supposedly bullying you, so you just ignored us all. What better way to show off childish behavior than giving everyone the silent treatment in the middle of a dangerous, trap-filled dungeon? Aqua sweetly asked. Really, the fact that nobody ever figured out anything was wrong should tell you something, you know. Yeah, it says the people around her don't know her well enough, Pride said. And that they don't care enough, Fear said. And that she should be angry with them all for failing her, Rage said. And finally, that water elementals are unfathomably dangerous, Reason said. Killing her is the wisest option. I'm sure her combat abilities can be copied to flow. All of my abilities and knowledge will be passed on, Aqua said. My personality and everything that makes me Aqua will be erased. If I am replaced, the new elemental would not have much personality at the start. So was the silent treatment really all that bad? Taya asked. I mean, they were kinda bullying you, right? Everything they were saying was correct, Aqua replied. Nav interjects unpleasant things into conversations to make them stop because she prefers silence to having conversations. Especially when those conversations veer toward subjects she dislikes. Cod and Twilight were just discussing this. I decided it would be a good time to show off how bratty Nav is, so I had her shut down for a few minutes. Conversations are how one decorates time, Nav, Reason said. Shutting them down just because you don't like them is unwise and cuts down your chances to grow. That's a really pompous way of putting it, but I know, I said. It's already something I said I would work on. Or at least, I'm going to try to drop fewer sad or awkward things in conversations. Unfortunately, that probably also means I'll end up talking less. Is being pleasant really that hard? Aqua asked. Oh wait, who am I kidding? This is you I'm talking to. The blue light turned on, so everyone started jeering Aqua. A small cannon appeared out of the ceiling and shot a tomato at her. It absorbed into her body and exploded, showering her insides with red. A few seconds later, it was all absorbed and she was back to normal. I see Flo, at least, is having fun with this. Well, the coma's almost over, unless we have to deal with some kind of hellish recursion, I said. Might as well let her enjoy it while she can. As for being pleasant, well, I might occasionally have some problems with that. But now that I have a pure elemental in me to help guide me, I'm sure I'll get back on the right track. That and the coma, of course. You're almost always pleasant to be around, though, Taya said. I usually only mind when you start tickling or teasing me. Or when Nav pays attention to anyone else, especially other children, Aqua said. Well, that's a given, I said. I mean, this is my vicious attack filly we're talking about. I'm not clingy. Taya shouted as she latched onto my leg. Right, of course, I said, patting her head. After all, this coma is for addressing my issues, not yours. As long as you understand, my filly sweetly replied, still holding onto me. Her grip loosened, at least. So, you said this silent treatment was the last thing Aqua made me do, I said. It was also one of the most minor things she did. Overall, what do the judges think? Guilty. Rage screamed, slamming a hand on the desk in front of them. Off with her head. One of the main reasons you kept her alive this long was so you could judge what kind of damage she did, Reason said. Now you know. Can you ever trust that she won't somehow find a way to tip the scales? Fear asked. You've discovered how dangerous the ancient are. If you leave Aqua a chance, she could slither her way free. When has killing ever led you wrong? Pride asked. Take the permanent solution. Put this monster down for good. It's the only way you'll ever know for sure she'll never trouble you again. That's not really what I meant, but those are all good points. And the defense? I ask, looking over to Aqua. To be fair, you were being kind of a bitch before I took you over, Aqua said, shrugging. I figured you could use a hand. It's not my fault you didn't like how I helped you. And finally, the filly. I ask, turning my eyes down to Taya. You can't use bimbo mode if you kill her, Taya said. But to be honest, I don't think it's as embarrassing as you want it to be. Most ponies don't really know what a bimbo even is. I do like the idea of enslaving and utterly humiliating our enemies, but killing them is usually much smarter, right? The dead can't get revenge, after all, Aqua said. I mean, I was planning on completely eradicating your personality, so you'd still be doing unto others as they plan to do unto you. That means you wouldn't be breaking your silly rule by killing me, right? Everyone here is in favor of killing her, save you and me, the guide said. And that is only because I am the neutral hostess. What is stopping you, Navarone? Why is she still alive? I really just wanted her to pick her own name, I replied with a shrug. I wouldn't pick a pun, so she'd end up an outcast like her sister Carl and her cousin Nesto Rats. If she's going to start over, I want her to fit in with the popular girls. If that's all you wanted, it was unnecessary, Aqua said. Whenever a new elemental is created or an old one is reset, the name generator links with the nearby elementals, runs through the list of names, then picks an unclaimed puna name from its dictionary list. If you just tell my name to reset during the process, a new one would be picked. Wait, so how did Carl happen? We've been told to deflect all questions about Carl, Aqua said. I don't actually have an answer myself, so I'm afraid ordering me to tell won't help. Could it be some super obscure human pun? Taya asked. I don't care enough to keep pondering it, I replied. You have until I see you in person again to decide on a new name. If you really don't want to pick one on your own, that's fine. Our Ngusus will pick for us. I finally have something to look forward to. Aqua yelled, shooting her hands into the air. The sweet release of death is almost upon me. Stop bragging, damn it! I said. You're making me jealous. Taya's clearing throat and glare made me cough. So, is that the end of the game show? It sure is, the hostess replied. Are you satisfied with your prize? Wait, I got a prize. I ask. Sweet, is it a new car? No, it's the end to a worthless goddess, Rage said. Your prize is the decision to finally rid yourself of Aqua. After everything she did to destroy you, it's about time, Pride said. I really can't believe you didn't make it sooner, Fear said. You were secretly terrified she'd break free. Killing her is the right call, Reason said. You may have forced her to love serving you, but she's still a risk. Flo's goal with this game show was to help you realize that. What happened to not mucking about with the coma, hey? Well, it was for a decent enough cause, I guess, I said. I've had my fun abusing poor Aqua. I'll just kill her the next time I see her instead. Thank you, Aqua very sincerely replied, bowing down before me in a way that looked pretty earnest. Happy to help, I said with a grin. So if the game show is over, I guess we can move on. We sure can, the guide said. Her eyes flashed and we left the stage behind. End of Part 3.